Uh-oh. Okay, we'll start with this. Ahead of her upcoming title defense against Germany's own Natalie Zimmerman, Terry Harper says, youngsters can achieve anything. She is the shining example. She says her remarkable rise to become a three-weight world champion proves that if you have the right mindset, anything can be achieved. Terry grew up in Denaby, Maine, and started boxing at age 12. It was the best decision she ever made. 16 years later, she is current WBO lightweight champion and has the honor of defending her title at her home football club ground on May 23rd, later this month. The athlete has overcome adversity throughout her career. The last obstacle to her success was at Sheffield Arena on a Dalton Smith undercard when she was beaten in 4 rounds by Sandy Ryan for the WBO welterweight title. Since then, she has regrouped, beaten an unbeaten Rhiannon Dixon at Sheffield's Park Arena, and is now preparing to meet unbeaten German challenger Natalie Zimmerman at Doncaster Rovers Stadium on a show promoted by Sheffield's GBM Sports. Terry is desperate to win, but realizes the event symbolizes more than just a boxing match. Of course, defending a world title is always the focus, but this is about more than just the belt, she said. It's about legacy. I want the people of Doncaster to remember this moment, to see me cemented in our city's history. I want to show all the young people that you can come from Donny and become anything you want. World champion, anything. Put your mind to it, and it can happen. After fighting 17 times as an amateur and 19 as a professional, Terry says fighting in her hometown stadium is a heartwarming opportunity. Nothing compares to fighting at home, and to do it in a stadium is literally a dream come true. I hope I make everyone proud. The fans have always had my back right from the start. That support has helped me climb the ladder and get to nights like this. Big Time Boxing is finally here, and Donnie is buzzing. Everywhere I go, people are talking about the fight. It's captured the whole city. As for her Hamburg-based opponent, she says she's only fought outside Germany a handful of times, and this is only the 3rd time she's signing up to go to the championship distance. So she's definitely stepping up here and biting a lot off. Anyone undefeated at this level is dangerous, so I have to bring my A game. I can't slip up. I am doing a lot of very, very hard training to make sure she's facing the absolute best version of me later on this month. So what threat does Natalie Zimmerman actually pose to Terry Harper? Well, even though Natalie's unbeaten, and even though you can never really afford to take your eyes off the ball, Terry should be able to beat Natalie with relative ease. If she is taking her seriously, and I think she is, Terry should win and extend her reign as WBO champion. Beyond that, well, that's where things get more dicey. That's where things get more serious. I've always had a deep veneration for Terry Harper, mostly because she's one of the first female fighters I started to follow. After I found out about Katie and Clarissa and Cecilia, Terry was right there behind them. A young, exciting fighter that doesn't have the deepest of amateur backgrounds, but exhibited a lot of talent. And I was right to assume that she would go all the way because all these years later, she did. She's been a champion at 3 weights. At 130, at 154, now at 135. Without being a member of Team GB, to my knowledge, she wasn't, or even a Team GB alternate with just 19 amateur fights. A unification bout between Terry Harper and Caroline Dubois is a possibility for later this year. She's had a target on me since day one. If she wants it, she can have it. I'm sure the fans would love a unification fight, and so would I. But first, I've got a job to do on May 23rd, said Harper. After that, I hope we can make it happen. It's a massive fight for women's boxing. I also believe it should take place wherever it draws the biggest crowd. Maybe we do it here at the Doncaster Stadium. This Natalie Zimmerman fight will allow Terry to extend her reign as champion a while longer, but if she were to go straight into a Carolyn Dubois fight after that, I fear that Carolyn would beat her. Carolyn would knock her out. I have to be objective. Objectively, I actually respect Terry a little more than Carolyn, even though I think Carolyn would beat her, and it's because of what Terry said. Carolyn has been in hot pursuit of Terry more so than some other fighters and some other champions at this weight, because Carolyn views her as low-hanging fruit. Since she's been stopped 2 times already, Carolyn would rather fight her than, say, Beatrice Ferreira. If she kept the same energy for everybody, then it wouldn't matter, but because she doesn't, it stands out. Why the fighters doing what they're doing matters just as much as them doing it. Her character is showing, or the lack thereof, and Terry's crazy enough to fight her. She fought Sandy Ryan, for God's sake. It's a part of why I respect her a little more, even though I don't think she wins that fight. Now, if she's shooting for a unification match that she can win, she should probably fight Stephanie Hahn, who we talked about in my previous video. Her upcoming fight in July, she's on practically the same schedule as Terry, and while it's not as big a fight as a Dubois fight, doesn't pay as much, it is more winnable. We will see what Terry does after the Natalie Zimmerman fight, and I do expect her to win that fight. Natalie has never fought outside of Germany, and she's never seen somebody as talented as Terry before. So Terry should win. What she does after that, we'll see.
There was an expectation that Fundora was supposed to fight Xander Zayas, and he's been stripped of the WBO belt. I'm sure you're disappointed about that, but that's what they did. And I just want to know what, like, just kind of like from a personal level, how do you feel about kind of I call them narratives that have been said about Fundora ducking Zayas and he's going the Tszyu route?
No, it's a fair question. It's not honestly not something that we actively discussed, Sebastian's other options. It really wasn't. We didn't give that a lot of consideration. We had an opportunity, and so we took that. I think there's part of Sebastian Fundora's makeup that he's a pretty honourable guy, and I think that in fairness, I can, and I'm not saying this from him. This is just my thought, that perhaps he is honouring the rematch based on the fact that it was there first. And perhaps he's confident enough to say, I'll look after Zayas later. I don't really know, mate. I'm only just taking a guess at that, but I do know that he comes from a terrific family.
Well, I don't disagree with Glenn Jennings that Sebastian is a good kid, and he does come from good stock, a good family, and he does have an honorable air about him. I don't think that's why they're fighting Timmy again instead of their mandatory Xander Zayas, because Sebastian and his family, good as they are, they're not the ones making the decisions here. It's Samson Lukowicz, a slime ball. Don't forget what Samson said right after Sebastian upset Tim. He said they were going to pursue Errol Spence Jr., not a rematch with Tszyu, and not a Terrence Crawford fight that was also in the queue. They wanted to go after Errol. That became their focus, whilst lying about the severity of Sebastian's injuries. They said that Sebastian would not be able to return until much later on in the year because he suffered a broken nose. Up until Sebastian spoke to Cynthia Conte and told her he could have come back much sooner. He could have come back over the summer. Don't lose focus on the details and trying to put them together. Essentially what that means is they lied. That's what you need to take away from it. That you might think that Sebastian is a good kid, maybe even an honorable one, but that doesn't mean that Samson isn't lying on his behalf. Maybe Sebastian is honorable, but Samson isn't. And fighting Tszyu again, we already know, was not their first choice. Their first choice was to fight Errol, coming off a devastating loss. And even now, I don't think Tim is their first choice, so much as the lesser of two evils. You're gonna go to New York to fight a Puerto Rican fighter in front of a largely Puerto Rican audience on the other guy's promotion. No way. For doing that, you might as well run it back with Tim. It's not their first choice. I think their first choice was and still is Errol, but Errol's not back yet. You're under orders to fight Xander Zayas, but you don't want to do it under those circumstances, so you drop that belt and go back to fighting Tim. You had that in your back pocket to resort to. I don't think they're doing it out of honor. I think they're doing it out of necessity. Because you can't fight Errol, you don't want to fight Xander, so this is your only alternative.
Thing when the WBO was still on the line, or did you already know they were going to strip him?
It was a fairly quick one, mate. So it was in there that it might happen, that he might lose it. Because the first question I asked was, is it for both belts, WBO, WBC? And at the time it was, oh, look, he's mandated to fight Xander Zayas. And that was probably the only question that I had. If it doesn't involve us, there's no point, having further discussions. The WBO belt would be gone, and we would compete for the WBC belt. So when we talked to Tim, it was only ever about the WBC belt.
You gotta use a bit of discernment for this next part. That if Team Fundora went into negotiations for a rematch with Tim Tszyu voluntarily, at a time where they were under orders to fight Xander Zayas, what that tells me is they were never going to fight Xander Zayas, because if you were, why are you now negotiating with Tim? You know that you can't have it both ways, and you know that if you don't fight Xander, you forfeit the brown belt. Now, I've already said that I'm not against the Tim Tszyu rematch, but at the same time, I'm not going to sugarcoat why Team Fundora are doing this. They're doing this because they figure Tim is more beatable than Xander Zayas is. More beatable because it won't require them to fight on a top-ranked show in New York City in front of a bunch of Puerto Ricans. They've already fought Tim before and beat Tim before, and even if there were some extenuating circumstances, that is still more favorable than going to Top Rank and boxing Xander. Now we know they were never going to box Xander. Not if you opened a dialogue to fight Tim while you were under orders to fight Xander. Call it a narrative, call it what you will, but what we know with an absolute certainty based on the involved parties is that Team Fundora went into talks to fight Tim again, knowing they were under orders. So what does that tell you?
Canelo. Jesus, Lord. Come on. You're getting paid all this money to fight against a runner who we all knew was going to run, a Cuban style. You chose him, and now you say you hate fighting runners? Well, then, don't fight runners. We all know who we want to see you in against. That's Benavidez. Go up against Benavidez. Fight Benavidez. He won't run. What's wrong with that? It's a good fight. But it's sad. It really is. It starts from the top, too. I mean, when you're fighting for the money and not legacy, every young fighter just follows that pattern. And it's not fair. It's not fair to the organizers, the people putting up the money, the promoters, the fans especially. The fans want to see good fights. Let's go. It's the fighter's job to give the fight fans good fights. It's teed up for everybody. Turkey's bringing out his wallet and paying everybody, and the least we can give him is good fights. Go out there and fight. Anyway, I had to do this improv clapback, if you want to call it. I'm just frustrated. I'm frustrated. But, hey, we got Crawford Canelo. I'm looking forward to it. Even though they're both almost 40. I'm looking for it. 'Cause it's a good matchup. But just show up and fight. Please, show up and fight.
Oscar raised some points, in some ways that are more valid than others, that it is true. While Canelo says that he doesn't like fighting runners, he did choose to fight William Scull. William Scull got the fight that David Benavidez didn't get. David Benavidez, he's not a runner, he's not. You don't have to chase him, you don't have to find him. So for being frustrated at William, that was of your own doing. Though when he said that it starts from the top down, meaning Canelo, that the fighters are no longer fighting for legacy, they're just fighting for money, meaning Canelo. What is Canelo Alvarez if not a legacy fighter? Listen, I didn't like the William Scull fight any more than you guys did, but that qualifies as a legacy fight because that fight made Canelo a two-time super middleweight champion. It wasn't pretty. Two-time undisputed. That's what it was for. So you can't claim that Canelo's not fighting for legacy. That's really all he's been fighting for, and you're just rationalizing ways to criticize him, to still bring him up. Think about it. If you're gonna blame Canelo for how the Scull fight looked, can we then blame Jose for how the Haney fight looked? Why didn't you include that in your ass clap Thursday? Oh, you don't want to talk about how Golden Boy Promotions went 0-3 at Times Square. You rather shift the focus over to Canelo, but you can't have it both ways. If it's Canelo's fault that the Scull fight sucked, that makes it your fighter's fault that the Haney fight sucked. You're saying that Canelo is only fighting for money and not legacy. I'm left wondering, well, what the hell has your Golden Goose been fighting for? What has Ryan been fighting for? Isn't he the one that said, well, at 135... belts don't matter, and he doesn't want one? Wasn't a champion at 135, wasn't a champion at 140, he certainly isn't one now at 147. Why didn't you include that in your ass clap Thursday? I don't put the blame for those fights as aesthetic on the guys that were coming forward and trying to make it a fight, because they're not the reason it's boring. It's the guy moving away. It's the guy moving away from a target that he's supposed to be hitting. That's William Scull, that's Devin Haney. And if the indictment is, well, how could Devin have won his fight doing the same thing that costed William Scull his? Maybe Devin shouldn't have won. Maybe the entire sport of boxing would be better off if Devin and every other fighter like him loses. Tell me that the lightweight division wouldn't have been better off if Vasily Lomachenko would have got that decision that he rightfully deserved instead of Devin. Tell me that we all wouldn't have been better off if Devin was not awarded on Friday for not fighting, because that's what he's doing. He's not engaging. When Jose Ramirez is stalking him and coming forward, it's to engage in a fight. So what is Devin doing by moving away? So my energy remains the same across the board. If Friday's fight and Saturday's fight were lackluster and boring, it's not because of the guys coming forward trying to make it a fight. It's because of the guys moving away to stay out of one. That's Devin Haney, that's William Scull. That's why so many people view Devin and other fighters like him as con artists, because you're conning the boxing community into thinking you're gonna give it your all when you're not. Fighting like that, you don't belong on television.